300 episodes.
300 episodes. So we're accumulating everything into just this one episode. So everything we've learned over the past 300 episodes.
In 6 simple life lessons.
Mama Says Namaste. Mama Says Namaste.
Making a family can be easy and fun.
Oh yeah, but raising a family can be a whole different story.
From spouses to kids to the crazy daily grind, life often directs us away from connection and more into reactive chaos.
If you're tired of that cycle and are seeking something beyond the picket fence blues, this is the show for you.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Nathan.
And we're here to take you from chaos to clarity by bringing awareness and intention into your home, not waiting for one day, and highlighting how
the uniqueness in each of us strengthens all of us.
Take a deep breath in and let's start a brand new day. With Mama Says Namaste.
All right. We are at our 300th episode. That's really crazy to think about. We've been doing this for a while.
Feels like 300 minutes.
Underwater.
No, I wasn't going to say that.
That's a silly joke Nathan has always shared that is horrible because it's
is.
joking about horrible relationships. The whole focus of what we are talking about on this episode is the relationship.
I know, but the reason it's funny to me is because we look like we're babies. So it looks like we got married when we were 15 when we tell people we've been married for 18 or 20 years. And so then I'm like, oh yeah, it only feels like 20 minutes. Underwater. And they look at me like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
awkward
then
moment.
Yeah, especially then when you say, yeah, and my wife's a relationships coach.
We keep humor at the pinnacle of our relationships coaching.
Right. We do keep humor as a big part of it. And that's kind of, as we were talking about, what do we want to talk about on our 300th episode? We decided we'd just kind of, summarize what are some of the powerful lessons that we've learned in 3 major areas. And that's looking inward. And that's really been our focus this month. So it's looking at, for us as individuals, our lessons learned, for us as a most intimate relationship, as our marriage, our partnership, what does that look like? And for us as parents and our relationship with our children. And I mean, the truth is all of the
Holy Trinity for the stool of happiness.
Exactly. Well, and the truth is all of these are relevant for all aspects of relationship.
Absolutely.
So we wanted to just share some of this with all of you. And there have been some listener questions that have come in, and so I want to try to kind of incorporate that in as we address these as well. Just weave it all in.
Ready.
Are you ready? Buckle up. All right, I'm going to start with a quote I share a lot of times. It's something that I read when I was a teenager, very much on my high horse of wanting to convince the world of what I knew was right.
Oh, yes.
And it hit me then, and it's been a guiding light that has helped me to grow with grace for myself and for others. And so this was written on the tomb of an Anglican bishop in Westminster Abbey. And this quote says, "When I was young and free and my imagination had no limits, I dreamed of changing the world. As I grew older and wiser, I discovered the world would not change. So I shortened my sights somewhat and decided to change only my country. But it too seemed immovable. As I grew into my twilight years, in one last desperate attempt, I settled for changing only my family, those closest to me. But alas, they would have none of it. And now I realize, as I lie on my deathbed, if I had only changed myself first, then by example I might have changed my family. From their inspiration and encouragement, I would then have been able to better my country. And who knows, I might have even changed the world."
Personal responsibility. All drummed out there in Anglican hindsightness.
Hindsightness, that's great. Man, it is something where, I mean, especially in light of the news today, boy, you can look and think that, the whole world's going to hell in a handbasket and we are screwed and we cannot do anything. And so we're a victim of circumstance.
I only have my Facebook cluster that truly understands me.
Right. And we can get lost in this frustration of if only the world could see things as we do, and spending our time barking what we believe as how the world can be. And it's really not helping. I mean, if anything, what you're doing is you're causing more damage because your mind is focused on everything that's without of your control. The way other people think, feel, do, act. And so you lose control of the one thing you do have complete say in, and that's your mindset and your actions.
Well, and it's easy to go with the negative too. It's kind of like a hot tub of lava that you like to get into at first, and then you can't get out of. Because you just get stuck in that negative. And the thing that I found is with the brain, you can just feed it whatever you want it to kind of get stuck on. And so if you stay on the positive side and you look at, man, it could have been so much worse. Even that's a nice shift away from the negative. Well, it could have been worse if I had done this, this, and this.
Right. And so when it comes to looking at what all is wrong on the outside, my first action step is going to be seeing, what can I adjust within myself? Is this just me? Is this my perspective? Is there a lesson that I can learn here? Is there something I can shift within myself to create a different outcome? I mean, as we speak out about the things that we believe in, are we speaking out in a way that's causing conflict and fighting with others? Or in, first finding a common ground to seek to understand? Okay, so here we are with our lessons. So the first two lessons are personal. These are the ones where we talk about really that process of looking inward first. It's knowing yourself before you can reach others. It's going back to that quote of, being the change you wish to see in the world, living it by example. So the first lesson, don't be afraid of the dark. This is something that, we talked about this a lot last week as I brought in Lenore Edwards, and we talked about trauma. And, she really helped me to understand trauma not as being just this big, awful thing. Trauma is literally anything that happens to our body that our body, mind, soul is unable to process. They don't have the tools, know how to handle it. So it's stored as this trauma until either A, you release it by getting those tools and letting it go, or by dying.
Oh, those are some great choices. I like those too. Either release it or die. Well, that's funny though. It echoes back to, I remember our CEO at the bank that I was working at for a while said, you change or you die. And it's really true. Either you shift and adjust, or you're going to stay. This is
what you're going to have, and you will perpetuate it.
Yeah. When my girls have a bad attitude and they're kind of sitting in their funk, I tell them, this is the way it's going to feel until you figure out how to move around it.
Right.
And this is going to be as good as it gets.
Right. It sits and it stores in our body. Our body retains a memory of it. And then that can manifest in lots of things that we can't get over. Maybe it's our anxiety or our eating issues, or just attracting drama. Wherever we go, we're perpetuating the drama that adds on our own stress and overwhelm.
Well, and I think that the courage to face into some of that darkness is the courage to be with yourself and really try to understand, why do I react in this way? What comes, when this happens and I'm not bringing my best, what kind of drives that? What builds that up? And the more curious you are about that, you don't have to be judging about it, just curious about trying to understand and put those pieces together, you might be amazed at what lightness that brings into your life. How, I remember going through some of the most horrific moments of my life, and I kind of realized in some of those moments that I had to be the one to reach in and love myself in that moment. Nobody else was going to come in and take care of that for me. I had to be the one. I had to be the adult, and that's okay.
It's hard.
It's hard to let go of that childhood desire to want to be protected and understand that you've got that possibility within yourself, though. You can be that good internal parent that you learn how to love each of the parts of that are in there.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you're sitting and drowning in an ocean and there is a raft right next to you.
Right.
And you're sitting there pissed off because the person on the cruise ship doesn't see you and throw something out. Well, my gosh, you've got a life raft right next to you.
Right.
Yet we spend more time angry at the person who's oblivious up on the deck than the fact that I have my own device to save me from drowning right here.
Right. It's a lot of times it's easier to look at how everybody else doesn't know how to drive their car, but you certainly shouldn't be critiqued at the way you drive yours.
Exactly.
And so, we it's easy to get into that flow. Reminding yourself that we're all humans. We're all trying to figure this thing out as the very best we can with what we've got right now. And, be able to face into, but, I think the other thing is don't stay, this is my dark side.
Well, that's what I was going to say next is, being willing to face into the dark does not mean digging up any trauma and waving it around as a banner that justifies why you're stuck in life. And what we talked about last week when I was talking with Lenora is how even going back and getting therapy or getting help and working through and finding new tools doesn't necessarily mean you're reliving this trauma. It may not even mean anything about, calling out somebody or throwing somebody under the bus or voicing it to anyone. It may completely be just a mindset and a mental work of you recognizing who you are now as an adult that shows proof that you have gotten past it.
Yeah.
That you can visualize that support and encouragement, not reliving it. And so, when we say don't be afraid of the dark, it's not don't stay in the dark, but recognize that when we can walk into the dark, then that gives us even more clarity when we do see the light.
Yeah, you're going to approach the world from a whole perspective, as a whole person or a wholer person.
So that's your first one. Don't be afraid of the dark, and don't be afraid to get the help that you need. And I encourage you to go back and listen to last week's episode to really dig into that. If there are elements of darkness that you feel are holding you back or becoming a justification, or you're seeing the same patterns going over and over again, if you keep thinking, why does this always happen to me? Maybe there is something there that needs to be worked through. So lesson 2, this is the other personal one. You are what you think about. And now this is something that has been ingrained in me from a very young age, because when my dad was 13 years old, he was raised as a strict Mennonite. And at this point, they actually got their first plumbing in the house when he was 13 as well. So they were just starting to live on the edge here.
Yeah, there you go.
And instead of, sneaking dirty magazines under his mattress, my dad snuck a motivational RP record by Earl Nightingale. And it was The Strangest Secret. This was a spoken word record, and it was spoken by Earl Nightingale, sold over 1 million copies, and received the first gold record for spoken word. And it kind of helped launch the fields of business motivation and audio publishing. And it's a 30-minute listen. And we had a challenge in our Eagles community where everybody listened to it every day for 30 days. And it was amazing to hear the insights that they got and the epiphanies from hearing the same thing on repeat every day, what spoke to them differently in each day.
Yeah, it's a very thick 30 minutes. There's a lot packed in there. But
yes.
It's very applicable to today's terms that you hear people say this, you are the product of the 5 people that you hang around. Well, that's usually because that's the most information you're getting, and that's that's your outward speak. And so the more positive and tailored you can make that for yourself, the better off you are. I mean, I remember being in high school and being kind of a victim of whoever I was around. It
becomes the group think. I mean, to his point of you are what you think about. Yeah, what's the group think around you thinking on?
Right. And the same is true for your relationship as an individual. It goes into your couples. How are you speaking to each other? I mean, we were hiking on a trail in Big Bend, and we were passing a family, and it was interesting to listen to how the husband and wife interacted, and kind of breaking each other down on the trail. And that became the norm of the teasing or the joking or the
Oh yeah,
you
they were
stink.
commenting about you're so stupid.
Yeah, you're so stupid, Jack.
It was in jest.
It was in a sweet, jestful way. But I remember joking like that in high school and stuff, and it just becomes the speak. It becomes the norm, and your brain is a very sensitive ball of pudding that it gives you what it gets in. And so if that's what you're getting in, just think about that. It's just those little things you don't even mean to do. I remember when we were working in real estate as our team, one of the words we tried to eliminate from our vocabulary was but. And so you just, for a month, we all, clicked at each other if you said the word but, and you figured out ways around it, and your brain made new connections. And so it's okay, and it's to try something like that for a while.
We've done that with the words but and the word can't in
Yeah.
our household. It's very rare for you to hear either one of those unless we're talking about our butt. Other than that, for the most part, you don't hear those words
But
because
mama.
we've eliminated those. Now, the blog post that I have that goes along with this has the full video or full audio of The Strangest Secret. So please go and check it out. It's episode 300, so you can just search 300 in the search bar and you'll find this episode in mamasaysnamaste.com. Or if you're doing it, a week of us doing this, then you can see it on the homepage of the website as well. So, so with this, we're not looking at bad moments. Nathan had some great insight to share with a loved one recently as we kind of walked through that power of mindset. And even if you have been there, it's just like, even if you've run that marathon or you've lost that weight once and then you go back and you get into a slump, you can really beat yourself up for getting back into the same slump. But, the proof is in the pudding. You've done it before. You can do it again. And the beauty is each time you work on your mindset to pull yourself out, the muscle memory is still there. I think about that with Nathan did a 100 push-up challenge for me a long time ago. And it, oh my gosh, about did me in. And it was so hard for me to do. But I did it. And then I put that off and didn't do it for a while. And then I decided I was going to start doing 100 push-ups a day again. And it was crazy to me and a definite confidence booster for me that how easily I could get back up to doing my reps of 25 that second time when I had been barely able to do, 2 to begin with.
Yep.
And so much of it has to do with my muscle memory. My brain, my body already knew what to do and how good I would feel afterward. And I got into it. And I'm proud to say that, at this point going into May, I've been fairly consistent with...
Way more consistent than me.
I've been fairly consistent with 100 push-ups a day, giving myself some grace, but not beating myself up if I don't do it, simply choosing the next day to try again. And that's what we're going for here. We're not looking at bad moments in our life or anything else. We're looking at how are we choosing to react to it, and we can change that reaction at any point to serve us better.
Yeah. Yeah, one last example of that is just, I remember watching Lost, the episode, in that opening episode where the plane crashes, and there's like people that are screaming and running around just yelling. There's people that are looking to try to help. There's people that are trying to organize other people. We all have these moments, but it was just a great example of chaos in our life. Like and the different choices of who we could be in that moment. We could be the doctor who wants to help each other. We could just be chaos and run around and scream. But we forget how much control that we have over what character shows up.
Right. Right. And so, again, going back to that mental self-talk, if you're saying, why does this always happen to me? If you're asking yourself that question, oftentimes there's a lesson that you haven't yet gotten. What are you continuing to attract in your life? Why? Dig deep into that and really think about what is your mindset and what is your approach. Is it, I just don't understand, I can't do this, I don't understand where everybody is at. I had a client who that was her MO, was that I don't know, until I finally stopped her and I said, well, as long as that is your self-talk, we're not going to go forward here. There's no progress we can do. You have already established you're not going to learn more by saying, I don't know, every time we're moving forward.
Yeah. And
that was a real wake-up call for her on how much our mental talk creates and perpetuates. I'm so fat, I'm so loud, I'm so nosy, I'm so noisy. Okay, you are.
If
that's awful. Is that what you want to believe of yourself? Is that the title you want to share and you want to tout for everyone else? If not, then you set the precedent. You teach other people how to treat you. So if you're going to treat yourself like crap, don't be surprised when other people are going to do the same. You are what you think about.
On that same note.
Number 3, and this is where we're going relational, because oftentimes, especially as a relationships coach, I have people coming to me who need coaching because they have a relationship that doesn't work. There are frustrations, and a big principle I stand by, and one of my core values is I will not triangulate. I will go to the source for a story. So if there is more than one person involved, then I will only be talking to the person in front of me about their part. And our kids know this all too well. Their frustrations of coming to me about how annoyed they are by a sister, and all of a sudden it ends up about them. And they're going, what? I was complaining about a sister. And I'm like, well, the sister's not here to defend herself or share her perspective, but you are. So how can you approach this differently?
Thanks, Mom. You're the best.
So be willing to face yourself first.
When you point your finger, there's always 3 more pointing back at you. And we talk to our girls about that. And it's a constant lesson, because it feels good to put somebody down and to put them in their place and to say, you were wrong. Mm-hmm. I mean, that does. It feels good to do that. And so we're robbing ourselves of that sneeze, if you will. Well, like a sneeze feels good. So if you say pink elephant, I'm robbing you of that wonderful, wonderful feeling. And so, it's kind of like that. You just work with yourself in that way.
Yeah, whatever intentions you have. If you're going to simply speak to your partner in the way that works for you, that's only expressing one side of the story. So when we talk about facing yourself first, it's face yourself first so you can address others. And we really dove into this when we went over the book, The Chameleon, which I have linked in here too for anyone who has a personality or knows someone who does. And that was 2 episodes back, episode 298. Nathan and I talked about The Chameleon and this book that talks about the personality styles, not as 4 different pillars of differences, but how do you interact and connect and adapt to work with each one? And I loved the concept of the golden rule, where there is this idea of the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. And when that comes to the core values of honesty, integrity, compassion, grace, yes, treat others with the same level of these values that you want to be treated. But when it comes to our communication and our interaction, you're going to go way further by treating others the way they want to be treated. And that comes from me knowing myself and me knowing my partner. I know that I want to be treated with a quick list and bullet points of what my action steps are. And Nathan knows this and knows to oftentimes begin with the end in mind. I also know that in working with him and treating him the way he wants to be treated, if we have an issue, I'm not going to immediately attack the root cause of it.
Yes.
But I'm going to open that door a little bit more gracefully with a little bit more compassion so that Nathan understands I'm not coming in for attack. I'm coming in for understanding.
Boil the frog.
I'm not attacking.
I know.
Yeah. So be willing to face yourself first and really look at are you willing to learn, compromise, and grow together with this person? And can you with confidence say you're doing everything in your power to be that person that your partner would fall in love with? Are you treating them how they want to be treated versus what's just beneficial for you? And are you looking at, are your intentions conveyed through your actions in a way they receive it? Because you can have great intentions, but if your action, just like this, I could have great intentions for having a conversation with Nathan, but if I jumped to the bottom line points, it could be viewed as attack, even though my intention was to find resolution.
Right. Whatever you say. No, I'm just teasing. You're absolutely right. I mean, that's the beauty, is knowing and being able to kind of tease and joke about our own, sometimes our own strengths can become our own weaknesses.
For sure.
And so it's, like I was jokingly telling Ashley this afternoon, we were listening to the Earl Nightingale thing, and she came in and brought that thing in the middle of like breakfast and dishes were being done. She's like, what? Nobody's paying attention. I was like, hold on there, boss. It was. I had an agenda.
You had an agenda. I didn't completely get the buy-in before I pushed that agenda on everyone else.
Right.
And so I could continue to attack because people weren't listening or being respectful, or I could face the fact that was I respectful and asking about the perfect timing.
And we can all be kind and gentle about it and just recognize that we all accidentally bump into this stuff all the time.
Right.
But what ends up getting into trouble is when we hold Custard's last stand of like, nope, I'm dying on this hill. Y'all got to listen to this stuff. Nobody cares. And it's easy to roll into that stuff.
Right.
And so that's where I found, just having the humor and the questioning and sometimes you can ask a question that the answer is pretty obvious.
Right.
And you don't have to point,
no finger has to be pointed. Just let the thing play out on its own.
Yeah.
Well, and that gives us to lesson number 4 when it comes to our relationships, especially with our most intimate partners, is giving grace for growth. And like you said, not dying on that hill just because, but recognizing, okay, you know what, maybe I didn't handle that the best way.
And sometimes this requires a truce. Sometimes it means, hey, we just, no more. Time X off. From this point forward, no more shots across the bow. We're all having everybody's best interest at heart.
Yes. Clean slate.
And then it's okay to fall back into that because we're our brains are just naturally wired to create these paths, but once you stop using one of those paths and start focusing on another one, it can become your standard response, your standard MO.
We've talked about, and I shared in the blog post, Nathan and I have changed so much from when we first got married.
Yeah. I tell stories of when I was in high school and my kids are like, not you. Not our father.
Right. We've changed a ton. Our kids have changed us a ton. We have changed each other a ton. As we have grown and been willing to look at our darkness, look at our light, and choose what we want to create and who we are, we've changed. And nothing can put you more on the defensive than to be treated like you're wrong from the get-go. And so, we changed because Nathan and I were coming together seeking to understand each other. There were elements we loved about each other. And so every difference that we had was okay, let me understand this. Like, this is a part of you and I love you. And so what does this? And what do you mean by this? And so we would dig into it. And as we did that, it opened up a whole new language of understanding for both of us, as well as helping us to really solidify what do we truly believe, what is really important to us. So are you willing to grow for grace and growth in your relationship and be okay with reevaluating, not holding on to just what hasn't worked in the past, but looking at what steps have brought you to here and what you have learned from them, and then where you will go from there.
Yeah, and some of those steps aren't very helpful steps, and it's okay to let those stay to the side for a little while. That's where red light, green light is always a great tester for me, because if you want to, sometimes making a big change, like, okay, I'm going to do 100 push-ups every single day, I swear to, and then 3 weeks, and you're like, I don't have time for this, I'm just busy. Okay, one mulligan, but I'll feel really bad about it. And, it just keeps on adding up. Man, it's just, I've completely forgot my point now.
About grace for growth.
Oh, grace for growth. It just, it's so much easier to just say, like you said, today I'm going to do my very best.
Yeah.
And give myself permission to make mistakes. This is going to happen. We're all human. We're all figuring this stuff out. Like, my favorite line, especially when we're working at the state parks, is people look over and point at somebody like, look at that idiot. And I say, well, we all ripen at different stages.
Yes.
Like, I was that idiot at one point too. And people were staring at me. And so,
and you used the quote a while back, you're always a genius today.
Yeah, you're always a genius today. I'm always the smartest dude in the room. Today,
at that moment.
Then I look back like, holy moly, those are some really close, stupid calls. But, that's the beauty of life is, instead of beating yourself up and saying, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that.
It does not get you forward. It
gets you nowhere. It's kind of like, well, that's the shoulds are the good examples of where maybe you shouldn't visit again for a while. Just try something new. See if it works. If you like it, you can continue to green light it. If there's something that comes up that's in the way, you can yellow light it and reevaluate. Is this really what I want? Do I want to go back or do I want to move forward? Or is the juice worth the squeeze?
We talk about this with new parents a lot of times by simply saying you do the best you can with what you know at the time and be willing to course correct with new adjustments. We parented Clara in her toddler years very different than we parented Juliet. Were we wrong to begin with? Yeah, I don't know that we would have gotten to where we were with Jules unless we had learned the lessons we learned in parenting Clara at that age. And we've talked openly. And I mean, I've apologized to Clara for, being so inconsistent with what we did when we were younger, because we were figuring it out. And so, I mean, I admit that we did not handle everything perfectly. I will admit now we don't handle everything perfectly now. We'll always have those moments of mess up. Right. And so I can't move forward with confidence that I have done the absolute best right thing for every single scenario. So what I can say is I know that my goal is really looking for what I do believe is the best for our children and for us, the best decision that we know at the time. That's it. Knowing that as we grow, those will change, and we have to have that grace for that growth.
And there's a real fine line there, because that can be a cop-out too of, well, I didn't know any better, But if you keep making those same mistakes, or you keep bumping into the same, I should have known better, it's pretty clear what you have and haven't figured out.
You're going to see the patterns. I mean, the best you can with what you know at the time implies also that you're continuing to grow.
Yes.
And you're continuing to learn so that you are willing to course correct. You can't course correct if you've only stayed one course your whole life. That's not growth, that's stagnancy. And that oftentimes can lead into a fixed mindset where it is what it is. This is just what you have to deal with in life, because you've stifled your opportunity to grow beyond it. Okay, lesson number 5, and this is where we get into more of the parental roles here. And the first one is meet them where they are. And that was my biggest piece of advice that I got when Clara was young. That was such a game changer for me.
It's just good human rule of thumb, too.
Exactly. And that's the thing. We say that, this is for parents and the other ones were for individuals but whatever. These are also principles that work for all of us. When you meet someone where they are, you are giving them permission to feel the way they feel. And that is a way better way to get into a conversation or any connection than to say, you don't have permission to feel this way, turn that off. Right. How often does your child fall and they start crying and your immediate response is, it's okay.
You're okay, you're okay, you're okay.
You're okay, you're fine.
Get up, brush it off, walk it off, you're fine.
Right. Well, what is that telling to the child? What is that conveying to the child? Crying, we have got to throw out this idea of crying being a taboo thing or a horrible thing. We sweat, and people don't necessarily rush up to you and you stop sweating. Your body naturally does it to release when you're hot. Well, your body naturally releases tears at times for the intense emotions that you feel. For the joy, for the pain, for the sadness, whatever it is, those tears are a release. And how often do we, once we're at that point of no return, we can't help but just fall, to have that release of crying, and then you have the child afterward or the adult afterward that says, oh man, I'm so exhausted. I feel so drained, or I feel lighter. Where this has been pent up for so long, and you physically feel a release, you feel a difference after your body naturally goes through that. So let's not tell people how to feel. Let's recognize their feeling and allow that feeling. And then we discuss what are tools to help that feeling. What are ways you can do to move through feelings versus getting stuck in them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that takes a lot of patience. I mean, it takes a lot of, deep breathing and being, it's kind of I call it, it's going to be okay parenting, where you don't really know what's going to happen. But sometimes if you don't respond, that's the best response you can give. You've seen the mothers where the child flips over backwards and she's trying very hard not to run over there and grab the child because she wants to just see, okay, well, is he going to brush it off or does he need mommy?
And I've seen so many situations where the child looks down and what their reaction is 150% based on if mommy is looking.
Right. If mommy's running, then they suddenly start crying.
Right. And then all of a sudden they're in major pain. And so, yeah. And I share another video on the blog post that's Brene Brown speaking about empathy versus sympathy. And it is a great short video to really understand understand the difference between the two and how you empathize with somebody. And it's not, not necessarily by going through the same thing, but it's being able to understand and connect with that point of pain or that emotion that they are in, and being willing to just sit with that. And so, for a child, it may be giving them the space to be sad or angry or gloomy a bit. We've talked about how Juliet will go off into song and sing her Broadway songs of pain outside. And, we've had a few conversations about, random bystanders listening. But for the most part,
come in here and listen to the opera.
For the most part, we give some space to settle. For her and for me, we've talked about seeing red. Some people can sit in the emotion of anger. Some people sit in the emotion of fear. Some sit in the lack of emotion of apathy. Some in false positivity. There's a lot of different things, different emotions that we can sit in. And sometimes when we're in these extreme emotions, it's a really hard place for somebody else to meet us at. And so I know that for me, when I see red, I tend to be more reactive. I tend to be way more irrational, and I can find myself fighting just to fight because I'm agitated, and I'm needing that release of that fight. And so if there's somebody else around, that's not a healthy interaction. And so what are some other things I can do? Well, I might need to go cool off. I might journal. I might go walk around outside. I might just take a deep breath for a second and choose to not engage. And doing
do 25
those,
push-ups.
Do 25 push-ups. Yeah, these are these are the tools that I have found for navigating my emotion. And so when I'm in that extreme emotion, don't come and try to talk me out of it. Give me the space, and then I can have that conversation from a much better spot.
I know it hurts. I know you're trying to have this baby, but if you could push just a little bit further.
Yeah, sometimes you cannot fully empathize, and it's better to just give space. So just think about that as you're going into conversations. Are you meeting your child or others where they are, recognizing where their head and their heart space they are in? Or are you first trying to just convince them to be in your emotional state? Are you trying to regulate them? And maybe that's not the best spot. Maybe it is okay for them to experience what that emotion is to determine how well it's serving them.
And then if you're in an argument with an adult, use the same tools.
Exactly. All right, lesson number 6. And this, again, parental, but we can go beyond. And we talked a lot about this again last week in the episode with Lenora about being multi-passionate. Don't be afraid to follow curiosity.
And this can be a scary one as parents because you kind of have a blueprint for how you think your kids should end up. And part of that's influenced by other kids that you see around you.
Yeah.
And so when you allow your kid to follow their curiosity, it can be a little bit like watching them try to hang glide for the first time. Because they better, you got to get it right. And then you can kind of go with the way it feels. And so, it can be scary as an adult letting go of that control and letting your kid go down these curiosity waves. But it can be so worth it as long as you're curious with them and you can start to fold in all these different subjects of interest and ask them questions about how they would use this in their life and what their plans are with it.
You know what? And actually, I just to add on, and I didn't have this written in the blog or anything, but just for us to think about is I think some of our capability and confidence in following curiosity has to do with our financial literacy as well. And I'm sure we're going to have a whole conversation where we will discuss the book we're reading right now, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And we'll share our pros and cons of the book at a later date. But one of the things that the book talks about is how to make money work for you versus you working for money. And so we follow curiosity for anyone in the family. And we're doing it with a little bit of clarity of wisdom there of what's the investment versus the return.
Right. Sometimes flooding your kid with 6 different, they do ballet and they also do football and they also do,
ballet and football. Those are some interesting combinations
speech
you've got
class
there.
And on the tennis tee, like they're
You've
doing
got your
20 different things.
Yeah, your 10 extracurricular activities, and each one of them, the acting school and the costumes cost a lot of money, and then you've got your soccer game and all of your soccer gear, and then you've got your dance lessons, and you've got all of your dance gear, and all of a sudden you're following your child's interests, and your bank account is crippled in the process, and you feel like you're just pouring money. Well, then that does end up becoming a kind of a scary trap that we can get in. So we're not saying follow every curiosity, every random whim. It's do your research, know what the investment is, and then open that door. So
if you make it hard for them to try it,
and they continue to pursue it,
that's a great. This approach to parenting drives Ashley kind of nuts, because I will just let the suffering happen until I want to see, are they willing to go up the hill to retrieve the ball, or am I going to have to go get it when they get bored? Because I want them to go, to care enough to go.
And sometimes my patient level is like, let's just get it over with. Like, right. Come on, let's just go grab the daggone ball. Right.
But that curiosity, what you do, that's a great point, is, how you use that curiosity is really important, because a kid can figure out, so if I'm curious in something, that's the easy way for me to get whatever I want. Then.
So when we say follow curiosity, we say follow it all the way through. Look at the overall impact and effect as you go into it.
Would they do a Tough Mudder and still
we
want to go ride their bike? That's I will invest in good bikes then. Let's go all the way through. But if it's, I'm just interested in this because Ricky's got a bike and I want to be like Ricky, and then we're doing a whole, you're just copycatting.
Right. For Clara, following the curiosity of her interest in snakes was a very organic approach, and it sure as heck was not us just opening a door, since I was the mom who said I would never own snakes. I was the
easy sell on that one.
Yeah, I was not the easy sell on that one at all. And it was a long process of her starting with a very basic pet, a betta fish, and doing all of her research and doing such an amazing job caring for her betta fish that it opened the door to more animals. And then doing all of her research, understanding about snakes, educating me on snakes, knowing all of the pricing behind it, raising the money, buying her own snake. Her curiosity and what she's wanting to do a lot of times is her own personal investment, both emotionally and mentally, as well as financially.
Because we want to teach her the benefits of how to manifest a good life and what she wants out of this life.
Right.
And
we've opened the door to a ton. We've done, she's done, Indian bead looming. That's one she doesn't do anymore. Yeah. And needle felting she doesn't do anymore. But then, crochet was something she really got into, and then it started to fizzle. And so we kind of challenged, okay, how much do we want to accumulate? She put everything back. And so we had these kind of, basic starts to a lot of different practices, a lot of different avenues of art. And then 1 month when she was getting to be a teenager, I challenged her on it. And I said, we've got a lot of unfinished projects. What if you figure out what art form really is a good one for you so you can go deeper with it? And so she created her own challenge, and she put up a different art challenge every single day. She had a calendar and she plotted out, and she tried out every single one of the art forms that we had in our house. And she started weeding through them. All right, you know what? Indian bead looming opened the door for me doing the macrame stuff that I really did enjoy for a while. And I love this and I love this, but I'm kind of done with this now. And crochet, it brought up a whole new interest for her. And then she went from doing basic crochet to now being able to sell. She sells dragons for anywhere from $30 to $200 a piece. And she just finished an order for 5 of them. They're beautiful. They're intricate. They are they are high value, and she puts a lot of time and effort into them. And now it's something that's actually making her an income.
Yeah, and so now she can see kind of the journey of curiosity to cash flow, and how she can incorporate that in her life.
Right. And going on the conversation that we had last week, also following those curiosities, especially as you are older, oftentimes can lead to your own pathways of healing. And that's what Lenora talked about. She was interested in baking, but during baking, it opened up the door for time for her to pour into all these self-help books she wanted to hear. Yeah. And then that opened the door and unlocked an interest in digging deeper into who she was and why she was the way she was, and then goes down into opening the door to therapy. Now, in all of the stuff that she does, baking and that one aspect really is not a part of any of her model. Yet it opened the door to who she is now. And that's where, again, it's not that we have to look at every single curiosity making money for us, but it's what's worth the investment and what doors does it open. And
Well,
sometimes it's worth it.
It's changing, like when your kid brings the idea to you, instead of saying, oh, you can't make money at that, ask, well, how much money do you want to make at that? How will you make? I mean, I remember Claire was talking to us about wanting to do pet boarding because she loves pets, and she started, okay, well, if I buy a house and I board it out, this is how much it would cost, and this will be my mortgage, and if I charge this much for, here's what these folks are charging. And so she figured out, did the whole business model, and realized that she does not want to have a pet sitting business. But going through the process helped her figure that out. And so, that's why I talk about, the pain. In the pain, you can find the purpose. You can find the real, if they're willing to try and work for it, then, you've got something to really run with in curiosity.
Right. So again, let's go through all these lessons again. Lesson number 1, don't be afraid of the dark.
Lesson number 2, you are what you think about.
Number 3, be willing to face yourself first.
Number 4, give grace for growth.
Number 5, meet them where they are.
And number 6, don't be afraid to follow their curiosity.
So what lesson are you going to work on this week? What one thing will deepen your relationship with yourself, with your partner, and your children? Listen to the videos above, the videos that I have on the blog post. I mean, listen to those as many times as you can this week and look at what you are in control of and what you're intentionally seeking to create in this world. So be really clear on what your self-talk is. And if you're steering your own ship, or if you're mad at that random person on the cruise that's oblivious to your pain and agony here. So get clear on who you want to be and whether your actions clearly communicate the intentions behind them. Be open to your facing your own truths, meeting others where they are, and leaving grace for growth. And as always, remember, the uniqueness in each of us strengthens all of us. Namaste.
2, 3. Up with the rising sun, already on the run. Mama says namaste. Life is a tangled mess, and you don't have to stress. Mama says namaste. 'Cause today I will stand up and be all the change that I want to see in this world. Boys and girls, you gotta have to stand up to be free. Namaste in your heart. Take a deep breath in and let's start a brand new day. With Mama Says Namaste.